Hello everyone, am I audible? Maybe if you can guys like just answer in the comments if I'm audible or not. Okay, that's great. So good evening everyone and welcome to the second session of Android Study Jam. This session is a collaboration of Google Developer Students Club at Bharatiya Vidyapeeth College of Engineering, New Delhi and Google Developer Students Club at SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram campus. I'm Kanishka Agarwal, current GDSC lead and Android facilitator at GDSC BCC. And I'd like to invite my co-host, Divyanshi, Android facilitator at SRM Institute.
Hello
Hello,
everyone.
Divyanshi.
Hi Kanishka.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Divyanshi.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Hope you all are doing great. I'm Divyanshi Gupta, facilitator of GDSC SRMIST Ramapuram campus and your co-host for today. Let's start with a quick introduction of the speaker, who is an associate Android developer and a former DSC lead of Sastra University and is currently working at Kyndryl. He has been working in the Android industry from quite some time. His experience in this field is around 5 years. He has worked on a lot of amazing projects during his college, which even includes his college official placement application. Isn't that cool? Well, I can continue talking about the speaker's achievement as there are many, but we have to start the session. So I would like to welcome our speaker for today, Kavin Raju S.
Good evening, guys. Thank you, Kanishka and Divyashini, for the introduction of me. Um, Good evening to everyone. I'm Kavin Raju S from Trichy. I'm based out in Trichy, and then I'm working at Kyndryl right now. And I've been into Android since my college days, and I've been involved in various community activities. And one among those was being a lead of DSC Sastra University. It was actually a pleasure for being a lead because it has improved me a lot. It has improved me a lot, both technically and personally. Um, so I take privilege to be part of this Android Study Jam. Thank you both the teams, both the DSCs, DSC SRM and DSC Bharati Vidyasi College of Engineering, New Delhi. So let me start with the session without any further delay. So welcome you all again to the Android Study Jam. So today's agenda is these items. We'll speak about little bit about the Android and the Android Studio, and then we'll see what are the core components of Android. So if you are learning Android, then definitely you need to know these basic components of Android, and then the Mvvm architecture. Then few of the important topics for this session, that is data binding, navigation, lifecycle, persisting data, view model, live data, coroutines, Kotlin Flow, Retrofit, Glide libraries, and then we will move on for a hands-on session. And at the end, I'll give you a few tips on how to become Android associate Android developer, and then few tips on resume, building your resume. So I think most of you would have been familiar with these. Android Studio is like has a rich layout editor with lots of features, and then it has vector asset studio version control tools such as GitHub and Subversion, so that you can move your code directly from your Android Studio. And it also has APK analyzer, which actually makes you to analyze your build APK at the deeper level so that you can improve the performance of the uh, application. Then there are also Android profiles, like you can see lively the CPU usage and then the memory management. Then you have the emulator and Firebase cloud integration and a lot more. Actually, this is very few stuffs which I have gathered, but there are a lot of things. And finally, the Gradle, which is the build system for the Android application. So basically, this is how the Android project hierarchy would be. There will be manifest file, then your Java file or Kotlin files, then your test files, then the resources such as drawables, layout, XML files, and a lot more. So basically, in Android, we not only develop using the Java and Kotlin, but also we use C or C++. But that is part of the native development kit. That is, when you want to code an application by interfacing the hardware components and hardware sensors available in the mobile device, then you move to the uh, C native development kit. And if you just working on the libraries which are provided by the uh, Android team. If you are going to build on top of that, then you move on to the software development kit. It uses Java and Kotlin and other development tools. It has rich set of libraries, and as we all know, Jetpack is a very cool libraries to use, which makes the development time very less. And actually, if you consider the memory management in SDK, it is managed automatically. But when you move on to NDK, you would be doing the memory management kind of stuff. So this is how basically an Android application is built. That is, APK is built and then installed on your device. That is, the Gradle builds your Android project and then produces the APK file, which consists of the bytecodes, resources, and the manifest file. And then the jar signer will sign your application, and then it installs onto your device using the Android debug bridge. So next we move on to the core components of Android. So it's just for the activity, service, content provider, and broadcast receiver. The activity is the stuff which the UI which the user sees on the UI. That is, using which they will interact with your app. And service is nothing but which runs at the background, which the user can't see. It can be either a foreground service or a background service. Example of foreground service is running music in the background. An example for background service is downloading any application or updating any application, that kind of stuff. And content provider is a way through which the data or content is being provided to any application. For example, if for example, we will take the Google's contact application. If you are building any contact application which has uh, some other new unique feature, then you can use the build already available contacts applications database, and you can get those data using the content provider. And finally, the broadcast receiver. Broadcast receiver is a way of communicating to other application. That is, if you want to send any events, that is, if you are building an application like camera filter application or any notes taking application, then at the final stage, after taking photos or after taking notes, if you want to let know other application which uses those images or notes, you can tell the Android system that, hey, you have this image captured, if you want you can use it. So if at all any other application is listening for these kind of broadcast messages, then they will retrieve those data and then they will process it. So for example, if if you're building a camera filter application, the same example, and if you're taking any picture on the normal built-in camera application, so at that time the system says that image has been captured, so you can listen to that message, broadcast message. So this is the four building blocks of Android. So next comes the MVVM architecture, that is model view, view model. So it is a software paradigm which actually requires you to use these architectures so that you build the application, and then you so that it becomes more easy for the developers to actually include or remove any features quickly, or to make it more working, that is to make the code more testable and less error prone. So if you see this image, this is actually the view, and this is the view model, and this is model, that is model view model. So model is nothing but where the business logic exists, from where the data is sourcing from, and view is where you are displaying all those data, and view model is where it kind of a controller kind of stuff, which actually provides the data to the view, and then listens to the events that is actually from the view, and then it tells which data has to be fetched from the repository. So if you take the repository, it can be either from the local source or the remote data source. Local source means the local SQLite database, and remote means it can be any HTTP call. So for more clearer view, so this is actually the stuff like which we are going to work on. The view is where the fragments and activities lie, and view model uses the is where the live data exists. So using the live data, we will make it we make the data lifecycle aware. We will look those topics in further slides, and then the repository, and here is the remote data source, and here is the local data source. So for local data source, we can use the room DB, and for the remote data source, we can use the retrofit HTTP client library. So next, we will move on to the advantages and disadvantages. So when you're using the architecture like MVVM, actually MVVM provide the advantage of using the MVVM is actually uh, it actually makes the code loosely coupled with each other, and it also implements the separation of concern concept, and it makes the code more testable. That is, if you want to make the view if you want to test the view alone, then you can mock the data which are being provided to the view, and then you can test that. uh, and if you want to test the data source, that is whether your repository is working fine, then you can mock the data from the local DB or from the remote data source. So that is how it works. You can just actually split it up, and then you can work on it, that is test your application. And the disadvantage is, it is actually not a serious disadvantage, but one minute, just a minute. Sorry guys, I'm not sure like, why my screen didn't get shared. Uh, I'll share it again. Uh, just confirm me whether my screen is visible. Okay, hope my screen is visible now. I'm really sorry. I switched on it but I'm not sure what technical issue was there. So I'll just quickly run through the slides which I was reading about. So this was the agenda, and then I was speaking about the Android Studio. So what all the features it has, and then the Android project hierarchy. So we spoke about the NDK and the SDK, native development kit, and the software development kit, and then how the uh, application is built on device and what is the build process. So it is all about the Gradle. Next, we saw about the Android core components, that is activities, services, content provider, broadcast receiver. Next, we moved on to the Mbvm architecture, and so I'll just explain this again. So this is the model, and this is the view, and then this is the view model. So all the business logic moves into this model side, that is repository, which takes which retrieves the data from local data source or from the remote data source, and it gives it to the view model, and then view model actually provides those data to the view, and it is lifecycle aware. So view model actually keeps the data across the various life cycles of the activity and fragment. So view actually observes uh, for the data, and when only if there is any changes on the data, it will reflect on the view, UI, and it is actually the simpler way of representing, and actually we will work on this kind similar kind of structure. So the first one is the view. As I said, the fragments and the activity resides here, and then the view model which has the live data, and then the repository which uses the flow, Kotlin flow, and then the repository uses gets the data from the remote data source and then the local data source. So for remote data source, we'll use Retrofit, and for local data source, we can use the room DB. So the advantages and disadvantages, as I said previously, MVVM is loosely coupled, and it maintains the separation of concern, uh, this thing, and then it makes the code more testable by, as I said previously, if we want to test the view alone, then we can mock the data which is being provided by the view model, and then test if the view is displaying all those data properly, and then if you want to check if repository is providing the data properly to the view model, then we can mock the data either from the data, so remote data source or local data source, and we can test that. So that is how it makes it more testable. We need not actually rework on testing. So there are other software architecture like MVP and MVC, but MVVM actually fits most of the Android projects, but still it is the use case specific. The Android architecture is use case specific. MVC stands for the model view controller, and MVP stands for model view presenter. So the disadvantage is lots of code overall, and then many hierarchy of files. Yes, of course, there will be many files, and then there will be many hierarchies to be followed. But still, it actually makes the developer life easier by making the code separate. So let us look at some of the essentials required for the hands-on session. we'll just we'll just overlook on this topic because it will be helpful while we are working on the hands-on. So view binding, actually it is a it is used to interact with the views by avoiding writing find view by IDs. If you would have worked on the Android project maybe 3 years back or 4 years back, you would have wrote a lot of find view by IDs. And then came the butter knife library, which actually um, became the alternative for writing the find view by IDs. And then now view binding and data binding is doing their work best. And the advantages of view binding is null safety and then type safety. So it can actually says and provides compile time error like that the variable is null and it shouldn't be null like that. Then comes the data binding. Again, it does the same thing. It gets rid of writing find view by ID, and it also supports layout variables and the two-way binding. We can also write expressions on the XML file, which actually gives more flexibility and more feature to while writing the code. So let us just look at it once, an overview how it looks. So the data binding library. So usually what we'll do is we'll we will get the instance of the view by using the find view by ID method, and then we will set the text. But when we are using the data binding, what happens is we'll just uh, directly mention from the view model object. That is, the view model has the username variable, that is property, and then we will just mention it directly. So this is how the data binding layout looks like. It should be in the layout which you are building out, that is a root element, should be enclosed by the layout tag, and then the data tag can have the variable, that is variable tag, which points out to the view model, and then you can directly reference to the parameters defined there. For example, the username. And then there is also a feature called binding adapter. It is also a very good feature. So how the view binding and data binding differs is, in data binding, one thing you can write a lot of expressions, that is on it. Uh, so you can provide these expression, the logical operation, the mathematical operation. See, it is just displaying the string dot value of index plus one, and then it is having a ternary operator, the conditional statement. So like this, we can add many state expressions over here, and then the two-way binding is where the view, that is, in two-way binding, the view actually gets updated when there is some update in the object which is being linked to. That is, if any object being linked to the on it, I'll just show that here. So this is how the two-way binding works. So there is a remember me object here, and it has get remember me getter and then set remember me setter. When we introduce this annotation here, then this view is ready for two-way binding. That is, whenever there is any change, it acts accordingly according to this logic provided in the set remember me, and then it will react to that. So that is how the two-way binding feature works. You can introduce any custom logic if you want here. And then view binding is nothing but it just avoids avoids the usage of the find view by ID. Next comes the navigation. So previously, when we were working before the navigation came into picture, we actually had many layout files, and we will just directly use the intent, uh, or we will use the fragment manager to get into the activity or fragment. And if any new developer comes in, they need to go and find how the activity transition or fragment transition happens. So that was very tedious task. But after the navigation came into picture, it actually made the life of the developer very easy. That is, uh, it has these three main parts. That is the the navigation graph, which contains all the navigation related information. That is all the screens which you are going to work on, and which the user is going to see. And then the nav host, which actually displays the destination. It is actually a container, or kind of for example, if you had worked on Android previously, for fragment we will use the frame layout as a container, like that. So for the nav controller, and then the next main part is the nav controller. This actually orchestrates the destination's content. That is, it is the thing which actually maintains or orchestrates the destination, and what the destination should look like, and what is the state of the destination, and how and what all the reactions should happen if the user is navigating to any specific destination. And navigation also brings in the uh, feature of deep linking very easily. That is, we can implement this feature very easily. Then comes the principles of navigation. These are all the basic principle. That is, any application should have one fixed start destination, and then the navigation state is represented as a stack of destination. It is basically what we see, what we have studied in the data structures, the data structures and algorithm, that stack. So if a user is navigating from fragment A to fragment B, then fragment B would be on top of fragment A. So it's up to the developer who have written the code whether to destroy the A or keep it in the backstack. And navigation actually makes like keeps this back up and back button. Sorry, not the this button, the back button, automatically, and it actually manages. So that's what it orchestrates the destination's content. That is, if the user is traversing from home fragment to some detailed fragment, then automatically this back button would be displayed. But before navigation, we have to set it manually. So that was very not very difficult, but still extra task for us, writing extra lines of code. So we'll just see what it has in this. So navigation component provides many benefits. That is, it automatically handles the fragment transaction and handling the up and button actions correctly, and then It also provides this standard resources for animation and transition. That is, for each action, that is for each transition, we can set uh, the animation, and implementing and handling the deep linking. That is deep linking in the sense, if any user clicks a link, it will take that is the link of the application. It will take directly to the in depth of the application, keeping the backstacks up. So that is a feature called SafeAx, which actually provides the type safety. That is, it can actually reduce many errors during development. And then it also supports ViewModel. Then the principles of navigation. So this is how um, the navigation looks like. So deep linking is like this. A user has navigated to this Apple screen, and then by clicking on some link, he's navigating to this avocado screen. So when he is navigating from the home screen, list screen, to this detail screen, this is in the backstack. That is, this home screen is in backstack. But when he is clicking on this link, it is taking the screen to this detail screen directly. But still, it has all the backstack which are necessary for this detail screen. It has, but it clears or deletes all the backstack which has been there previously. So we are not going in depth into these topics. Let us move on to the next one. So Android lifecycle, this is a very important thing to be remembered, or to be understood, not to be remembered. It is to be understood. So whenever the Android application is open, first onCreate method is triggered. So and next the onStart method is triggered. At that time, the UI becomes visible, and onResume method is triggered. The UI will be stable. You will be using the app at that time. When you come out of the application, on pause, on stop method would be triggered. If you are closing your application totally, then on destroy would be called automatically, and then all the references would be cleared off. Suppose if you are just keeping the application in the background and then you are opening it up again, then it will resume from here. That is, from it will be non-stopped. If you are clearing the application, at that time only on destroy would be called, or else on restart will be called, and then it again starts from here, on start, on resume. So this is the basic life cycle. It is very important actually. Then comes the LiveData, which is an observable data holder class, and it is lifecycle aware. That is, whatever the object which is being encapsulated by the LiveData, then it is lifecycle aware. ViewModel, it is designed to store and manage the UI related data, that is in lifecycle conscious way. So for example, if you are opening the application and you are using it here, that is, after on resume you will use the application, and if you are going out and navigating to some other application, and then you are navigating back to this application again, at that time the data which has been uh, available, or the variables which has been initialized would get destroyed. So for that, previously we were using the onSave instance state callback method, but then it can only store the primitive data types, and then we are using the bundles to store the object, Java object or Kotlin object. But if the object size is very huge, then at that time there might be a possibility of app getting crashed. So to resolve that issue, ViewModel has been created, which is actually the lifecycle aware. component. So if any data is being put up into the view model, it survives across the life cycle of the activity or fragment, whatever might it be. So it knows when it is when the view model is getting created and when it is getting cleared. So the view, whatever the data which is being introduced into this view model, it will get clear. It will get automatically cleared off. So I'll just run the slides quickly. So we'll be using Coroutines, which is a solution for asynchronous programming in Android. Its main features are lightweight, fewer memory leaks, and built-in cancellation support. That is, whenever you are creating any asynchronous task, it within a coroutine scope, when it is getting ended, all the coroutine task which has been created within that scope would be get destroyed. It has a lot of jetpack integration, and actually this makes the code more readable because it avoids the callback methods. Next comes the Kotlin Flow. Flow is built on top of the coroutines, and it provides multiple value sequentially. That is, when we are using the suspend function, it just returns the data, and then that's it. The only if the function is called again, it will give us the data back. But whereas in Kotlin Flow, it gives us the sequential data whenever it is whenever there is any data getting triggered. So there are three main uh, levels, that is producer, intermediate, and then consumer. The producer is nothing but I'll just show that previous slide. So producer is nothing but the flow, that is this one, the repository, and then the consumer is nothing but the view. At the same time, it can be vice versa. That is, the view can be the producer and the flow can be the consumer. That is, the view tells it requires some, the view does some action, and then the view model tells it need some other kind of data. So it fetches and it provides. So it's all about the Kotlin flow. And then the retrofit, it is a HTTP client library which we'll be using in this hands-on. And then the glide is a image loading library. We'll be also using this one. So I have run through the slides quickly at the last few ones. If we have time at the end, we will look at those topics still more little briefly. So I'll just open my Android Studio. Excuse me. I'll create a new project. Let me select the basic activity. I'll create the name of the project as news app. I'll keep the defaults as such and then click finish. Let us wait for the build to complete. So meanwhile, I will open the emulator also. So before we start working on this hands-on, I'll just show you how the app looks like. It's because I wanted to I wanted you guys to have a picture in your mind so that we can know, like, while working, you can understand what we are doing actually. So this is how our app looks, a list of news items, and then when we click on it, it will take to the next fragment. So we'll work on it now. So basically we have this default files. So first we will look at the navigation graph. So this is how the navigation graph looks like, and if you're working on very big application, then it would be very easy for developers to know what is happening and how the screens are getting navigated. So this is the nav graph, and in the content main we have the nav host. So this fragment tag, in this fragment tag, we say that this is a nav graph, that is nav host by where is it? Yeah, by adding the name property to the nav host fragment, and then we tell that nav graph connected to this nav host is this one. So this is the main activity which hosts that uh, nav graph. So here is the nav controller, which says that it uses the app configuration, that is this one. So it automatically gives this back button, right? So this is that one. So that's it all about. We won't be working on the main activity now. I mean, we won't be working on it. Actually, we'll be using only the fragment. We'll delete the second fragment. We won't be using it. So since we are working on the Mvvm architecture, so this is how the hierarchy usually. It's not a strict hierarchy to be followed, but it would be easier if you guys follow like this. So I'll just delete this first fragment. I'll comment this out. Delete this. So let me add some packages. That is, we'll be having the UI, and then we'll have a data package for storing the repository, and then we'll have the network package for adding the files which are making the HTTP calls, and then within the UI we'll add few more packages, adapter. Let us see first the headlines, and then we'll add another one package, adapter. Okay, fine. So I'll just move this first fragment to the headlines, and we'll also rename it and main activity to the UI. So all the UI related files should be under the UI package. So let me rename this to headlines fragment. And this file to fragment headlines. Delete this. So it is fragment headlines binding. So this is what the view binding comes into picture. I mean, see, view binding is set to true. So what happens is that for all the layout files, it creates a binding class like this. That is uh, fragment headlines, and at the end it will append the binding word. So here is a binding object, and then now let us create the view model in the same package. We'll tell headlines view model. So headlines fragment view model. So let us extend this from the Android ViewModel class. And it requires the application object, which will be provided through this constructor. So this application context would be useful when we are working with uh, local DB and remote DB. Mostly, if you are creating the local database at that time for creating the database instance, it would be required. Next, we'll just implement the factory required for this. And please create the factory class here. It also has the application property here. We'll create it as a variable itself, and it will extend ViewModel provider dot factory. Now it asks for just a minute. Fine. So we'll be checking if it is getting the that is object of the same type, that is headlines fragment view model. For that, what we do is model class dot is assignable from. We'll just use that class. So only if the instance is of type headlines fragment view model, it will return. It will actually instantiate. Application, or else it will throw illegal argument exception telling unable to create the view model. So we need to say as T. Fine. Now what we'll do is we'll create the object for this view model here. Private flag view model of type headlines fragment view model by lazy. We use lazy because it the this view model object gets instantiated, that is only when it is being first accessed. So that's the reason. You'll get the application object here, and then we'll create the factory object. And we'll pass in the application object. Next, the last line actually for this, when instantiating, the last line would be written. That is, we are creating the provider here, that is view model provider, and we'll tell this as the owner, and then we'll provide the factory object, and we'll get the view model headlines view model object here. So this actually returns. So this actually returns null. We'll just wrap it out using require not null, so that it always be not null. Fine. We have created the view model object. So what should be our data source? As I said, it is a news application. Let us just have a look at it. So this is the news API. You need to log in into your account, and you will be getting the API key, and we'll be working on this top headlines endpoint, that is this one. And then there are various parameters in which API key is the mandatory one. And then what else? Yeah. And if you want to want this query that is country wise or category wise or any sources, then you can add as the query parameter. So For simplicity, that is, we want to work on the entire data which is being written. We'll just take only few data. So we'll just take the picture, image, and then the title, the description, and then the uh, author. So let us take one data. Yeah, hope it is visible now. So in this, we'll take author, title, description, and the URL to image. Fine. So we'll create a um, class as a model here. So within the adapter itself, we will create, because we'll be using recycle view adapter, and for that only we'll be using this model. So we create here itself. Even you can have the separate package name called models, and then you can have all the models over there. That is also fine. Or if you want to keep it specifically within the place where you're using it, that also you can do. Let me name it as headlines model. I'll make it as a data class, and now I'll create a variable for title, which is of type string. Then for description, add author of type string, and then image URL also of type string. We are not making anything nullable, that is nullable here, because we keep the data, we will keep the data items not null, so that even if it is null, we can modify it while converting the data from when we are getting from the network. So we'll keep it aside. So this is our model. Next, we'll work on the UI part. That is, I'll remove all this, and I'll add the recycle view, then transparent, transparent. Then I'll give ID as RV headlines list, and then since it is a constraint layout, I'll just keep all those constraints. Start to the start of parent, constraint, and to the end of parent, constraint, top to the top of parent, constraint, bottom to the bottom of parent. So we need to tell what layout manager it should be. That is, whether it should be a linear one or grid one. So for that, there is a tag, that is a parameter which we can include. Here it is, layout manager to be. So these are the three. We'll use a linear layout manager, and then we have a while we need to populate the list items here, right? For that, we will create another one layout file named recycler item headline. We'll just quickly implement this. I will hover over it and I will tell ask it to include the data binding. So for adding the data binding tag, we need to tell data binding to true. We'll sync it now. So for using the data binding, it says we need to add the Kotlin. We'll sync it again. I'll use the material card view. What is the mistake? Height should be okay. This one, Android tag. Fine. So we'll add a card elevation of 1 dp and we'll set it to true. And in the constraint layout, we create the image view and set it to match parent 100 dp. For now, I'll keep the black color now, and then the scale type to fit XY. And I set the constraint to start with the start of parent, top to the top of parent, and to the end of parent. Next, we will have the title. So it is content. Sorry, content. Then we'll add the text to. Just copy it from here. We should always add the text to the string resources. Um, but for now, I'm just moving on. And then the text appearance to headline 6. So we'll just add the ID for both. Image view, headline title, and now we will add the constraint top to the bottom of image view, constraint start to the start of parent. So I think it's getting time. So I'll just copy the UI items directly. Give me a moment. Give me a minute. So that's not the correct file. Okay, let me do it. So I'll just continue. So next is the description. It is author. Content. And add the text to I'll add ID to TV headline author. And I will set the constraints now. Constraint bottom to the bottom of parent. Constraint start to the start of parent, and then constraint top to the bottom of title. So that's it as of now. For this, we are not going to add more stylings. We'll just try to add the data binding layout here. We'll format the code. Fine. So we have the list item here, and we have the recycler item. So let us add the list item here so that we can view it. Recycler item. So it is little congested, so we'll just add some padding here. Almost. Fine. So 16 is too much. We'll add 8. And similarly, we'll add some padding here so that the text won't get cut while viewing on the screen. Sorry, not for this. For this. We'll make it padding start and padding top. Fine. We'll close this for time being. So we have the recycler view with the recycler item. Sorry, there is a typo here. Now we shall create the adapter for connecting the recycler view with the UI. We'll head on to the adapter here. Create a adapter headlines adapter, and then what we'll do is we'll add the list adapter, and this takes in the list adapter takes in uh, the uh, the data class, that is the model which we uh, want to display, that is for each item, and then the view holder, that is basically view holder of. So before this we need to actually uh, add a diffutil class. So the reason for adding diffutil class is this list adapter is a subclass of recycler view adapter. So this diffutil class actually calculates internally calculates the differences when there is any addition or elimination or any updation, and then updates only that item and doesn't actually reloads the entire data and reloads the entire adapter. So that's the main use case, and that's one of the advantage for using the list adapter. So you'll name it as headlines item diff callback. So it is diffutil dot item callback of type. We should mention the model class here, and then we create the class. It says to implement the members, so or items the same. So it actually returns true if both the items are same. That is, we need to have some ID kind of thing for comparing it. So we'll just use the title for now. This is not a right thing to do, but for time being, we'll just do this comparison alone, and then our contents are the same. So we return old item is equal to new item. So we have implemented the diffutil class. Now we'll just add that here. We need to send it as a parent. So what is it? So we need to create. I think, yeah. The error is because we haven't yet sent the view holder. So that's why. So we'll create the view holder class right here. Let us name the viewer class as class headlines view holder, and then we'll create the constructor here itself, and we will have the binding class. So we that's the reason we added the layout option there. That is the data binding. This one, this layout tag. So what we do is we'll just name it as sorry, we'll just call that binding. So we'll be having the recycler view binding here, and then we need to extend the recycler view dot folder, and then we need to send the bind root to the view holder. Next, we need to implement the callback methods, that is on create view holder and other callbacks which are necessary here. We'll do that also. Just try implementing it and we'll check. Sorry, it should be of the same time. Okay, let us see. Let's try to implement the methods required. It isn't coming. So this is the mistake. I just imported the widget dot list adapter. It should be the recycler view dot list adapter. Yeah, fine. So now it says implement members here. So we need to this callback method would be called whenever the view holder is being created, and this callback would actually bind the view holder. So in the view holder class, let us create a function called from, and then have the parent view group as uh, parameter, and then we'll return the this class instance. Then we will create the layout inflator, and then we'll create the binding object from the recycler item binding, and then we will inflate onto it, and we will send this parameters. So recycler item binding dot inflate. We'll send the layout inflator and then the parent, and then we'll tell attach to root false, and then we will return the new instance of headlines view holder, and then pass the binding object. So this we can use this. This is actually the static implementation what we do in the uh, this one, that is Java language. So we will call this from method here. That is, we will return view holder from parent, and then we'll bind the object here. We'll use the when statement, and which is of holder type. And if the holder is headlines view holder, then we will get the headline. We'll use the inbuilt get item function, and then we'll send the position. And in the holder, we will create a bind function so that uh, we can handle all the binding operations here. So since we need to bind the data from here, we'll create the data uh, item here, and we'll have the variable. We'll name it as model, and where is the model? So we are going to bind the data from this object only. So for time being, we'll keep it like this, and we will adapter, and we will bind. So binding dot model. So that variable is available here. We will bind that with the headline, and then for making the execution happen, we need to execute. We need to call this execute pending lines function. So we have created the adapter for the recycler view. We have created the adapter for the recycler view. What we will have to do now is we have to attach it here. That is, we have to bind that adapter here in our fragment. So for that, we will create the instance here. Headlines adapter. Yeah, I will initiate. I'm not going to initiate now, so that's the reason I've added the late in it. So in the on create view, on view created, we'll create a, we'll call a function setup UI, and we will create it. There we will instantiate the adapter by calling another function. Here we will create the we will initialize the adapter, and then for making the adapter work, we need to bind it with the recycler view. So we will, what I'll do is I will binding that RV headlines list is the ID of the recycler view, and then we'll call adapter and we'll set it to the adapter. Now we need to submit we need to send the list to the adapter, right? So for that we'll create a dummy uh, data here, fun get data. So we'll create an object headline is equal to headline model of, first we need the title. We'll just copy it from here. So I'm not going to use the same one. Okay, let me use the same one, not a problem. And then the second one is I think it's description. Just a random data, so not a problem. Next one is the author, and then the image URL. I'll return a list of headline it should be of type list of. So here we'll call adapter dot. We'll create a method called submit. We can actually send the data here. ViewModel dot. But okay, let us run this application now and let us see how it works. We'll clear this. Meanwhile, we will search for the coroutines dependencies. See, we are able to see the list now. Let us add this dependencies now. Let us create a submit method here using the coroutine. It actually uh, makes the assignment of the list easier if the list is very huge. So let us create a scope for this adapter using the coroutine scope. We'll give the default dispatcher because we are not going to perform any IO operations or anything. We'll just give the dispatcher to be default. Okay. Just try to import it. So dispatches, sorry, it's equal to dispatches dot default, and I will create a function called submit headlines list, and I will create the list of headlines model, and within this adapter scope I will launch this scope, and then what I do is with context, that is I'll make it run in the main thread itself, and I will submit the list of list. It is actually the other way of doing the submit list over here. Uh, it actually helps when you want to modify some content within the list, or you want to modify the object type itself. So at that time you can do those conversions here instead of doing it in the fragment. So it is just another way of doing this, like submitting the list. So again, if you run, it will be the same only. So till now we have created the fragment view model, and then we created the recycler view, then its adapter. We have a model for it, and we use that model to populate it. We are populating the dummy data right now. So next we move on to the network layer. So we'll create few classes uh, to make the network call. So for that, we require some libraries also. We will import that also now. So for now, I will create services, and then I'll create the package called utils. Within the services, I'll create the news API service interface, and then what else is needed? Yeah. So we have created the interface for making like for working with the API call. What I'll do is I'll have another one package within the network for more as models. Here we'll create the network model. That is, this is how the network that is the response from the network will be converted into the Kotlin object. We'll name it as headline network model. So we'll take one response from here, just one. We'll copy it, right click here, we'll generate, click on generate, and click on the Kotlin data classes from JSON. We'll paste the JSON here. So we need to add the name here. Sorry, it's the entire response. So I'll just expand everything. So it is bit of work we need to do. We need to copy, expand everything, and we need to we need to delete these hyphens. So give me a minute. I'll just verify if I have expanded everything. So everything is expanded. I'll just copy it. Make sure that all the open and closing braces are proper. Now we need to delete these hyphens. Make sure that you delete that properly. Let us now name it as headlines, headline network model. Click generate. So the classes has been generated for us. So we will use this model for creating for getting the network response and all. So now we need to actually create another one file. We'll call it as endpoints. It is also a class only. Here we'll create a companion object. We'll place the base URL here. Const add. Sorry. So the base URL is this one. Now we will create another utility class which actually mentions the we will create a sealed class which actually states what are all the available possibility for the network action, that is whether the state is loading or success or failed. So we'll create a subclass called loading. So we'll create the generic type here, and then we'll extend the sealed class here. So sealed class actually states that there is no other further expansion of hierarchy, and there is no more possibility of other option. So that is what the sealed class says. So what's next? Class success of type T, and it is of, we'll extend the sealed class state, and then we'll initiate it. So for the success, what you have to do is we need to pass some data as value, as parameter, because it should be of type T. Because after the successful response, we need uh, the class that is the data, right? So that's why we are passing it as this one, and then we need to declare this as a data class. So only then we would be able to create the variable within this class. So again, another data class is failure, and again it has a message for the error. I'll extend the class. Now we'll create the companion object, the static methods for all the three classes, that is loading, it will return loading, sorry, it's loading. We'll create the instance of the loading class, and similarly for success, and for failure. So instead of failure, let us rename it as fail. That is more apt name. Or else we can also rename it as error. So we'll just keep this as fail now for time being. it's not required. Where is it? Okay, it's because it's never used. Type mismatch record T font string. Okay, let's try to do this. Fine. Okay, we have created this sealed class. Um, we will look into its uses in after a while. Now we will move on to the actual implementation of the uh, network layer. Now we have created this file. We need to import a few libraries over here. We'll just check retrofit dependencies. So we'll need to use this library. And I will insert the latest version here. Latest version is 2.9.0. Next, we will add this Moshi library. So it is actually a converter. So it is actually a modern JSON library which converts the JSON to Java or Kotlin object and vice versa. And we will find the dependency for it. I think it's available here itself. We'll find its version. Yeah, it's here. So this is a Moshi library dependency. We need to add the Moshi converter factory also. That is it. This is the converter. Sorry, I just deleted it. and its version also same as, let's give it as 1.5. Fine. We have the retrofit library. We'll sync it now. We'll move on to this file, and then we'll create a Moshi object, that is the object which is responsible for converting the JSON to Java, sorry, Kotlin object. We'll use the Moshi builder. So I think the build didn't happen properly. Let me now check. Yeah, Moshi.builder, and we will add the Kotlin JSON adapter. We don't have the adapter now. So adapter would be part of the Moshi library only. Why isn't it showing? Okay, let us call the build. We have the type of it. Okay, it should be of Kotlin. Let us now check. So we didn't mention the Kotlin here, so that's the reason. If you want the Kotlin specific library files, then we need to add Kotlin over there. Next, we will create the retrofit object, and we will use its builder to retrofit builder, and we will add the converter factory, which is the Moshi. We'll call Moshi converter factory dot create, and we'll pass Moshi object over here, and the base URL what we added previously, 8 points dot base URL. no, 12. So we have created the Moshi object and then the retrofit object, which are the main thing for conversion and creating the instance of the retrofit. Now we will create next one, that is retrofit service. That is the interface. So within the interface, uh, we'll create a companion object. We'll be using it later. We'll create a companion function here, and we'll create the instance of this uh, thing. So before that, we'll create the object for the news API. So we can actually create the object here itself, the object of this interface. But why this object separate? Why we are creating this object separately is, if you're having multiple services like this, we should have a single source, that not a single source, a single point where we are instantiating all those objects. So that's the reason we are creating this news API. Now we will create the retrofit service here, and it is of type news API service. We'll instantiate it lazily, that is only when it is required. We'll use the retrofit object and create by passing the service which you wanted to do, which you wanted to create. Now within this companion object, we can create the function create, which will return this new API service, that is from news API dot retrofit service. So you can name this any way you want. So sorry, this is a function. Fine. So we have created an object retrofit service, and then we have created a function so that we can call the service.create, which gives the retrofit service object. Now we need to add the API key, so that we when we are working on any development work, we won't add the API keys directly as such, right? So within Android, we can do that like this, so that we don't expose our API key to the Git version control system, or any server side. If web, if it is considered to be the web development, they would say it's server, and for us, we would be uploading the APKs. So we don't want that API keys to be exposed both to the version control or any packages which we are creating. So for that reason, what we do is we use this gradle.properties file. So over here, what you can do is you can just create a variable, um, and then you can use it. Before that, what you have to do is, you need to, if you are using any version control system, you need to add this file into .gitignore file, so that this file is not committed while you are doing the commit. So let me add my key over here. So give me a minute, I'll just add my key here. I'm stopping my screen sharing for a second. So I'm here back. I've added the API key over there. Next, what I'll do is I'll go to the build.gradle app level build.gradle, and then under the default config, I will configure that API key so that I can access it through the build config class. So it is build config field, and we'll need to pass the parameters as the data type as a string, the variable name as a string, and the variable name which we used in the uh, gradle.properties file. Now I will sync it. We'll move on to the endpoints file, and then I'll create const var API key, and I can access that API key through this build.config class. Let me just rerun the Gradle again. At times it happens, the build doesn't create the variable for us. Let us wait for the build to complete. So it has got completed. Here it is, API key. So our API key is ready now. Make sure that you are adding the gradle.properties file in uh, gitignore file. Now what we will do is we'll create the function that is required for making the API calls. Um, I'll create a suspend function because we want it to happen off the main thread. So we'll create a suspend function, and I'll call fetch headlines here. Let us go to the retrofit and we'll check. So for making any API call, we need to call its the REST API method, and then this one. So we'll just need to give the endpoints, and for any authentication, we can send it as either header, or we can use the query parameter for sending it as a parameter. So for this, oops, okay, fine, no problem. I can change that. So here they are passing it as query parameter. So there are two ways actually. One is the query parameter and another one is this thing, that is sending it as a header. So the first thing which we do is we'll send it as a query parameter. So this is a get method. So and the endpoint is top headlines. So let's check what are the other parameters which are required. So we will add the query parameter API key. So I'm using this because it's available here. That is API key. We need to use the same keyword as it is in the parameter, and we can just pass the so, yeah, API key of type string, and we can initialize it to the default argument as API key. Then we'll just add another one query parameter. It is language, and let us keep the default as English. And this should return the headline network model. Let me format it. So we have implemented the function which is required for making the API call. Next, actually this is the implementation. That's it. We are just making the API call using this method, and we are passing the query parameter here. You can also send this request as API key as a header. We will see at last. Uh, Now we will move on to the repository. So in the data package, we will create the repository file. This repository file is going to be very simple actually. So it just takes in the service, that is the network service, news API service as a parameter. I'll just create a function called fetch headlines, and it should be of type flow, and it will return, it will wrap the object of type state which we defined in the utils package, and it will have the list of headlines model. So this is the model which we created for the UI. So we'll have that thing as the return type. Okay. So we need to use coroutines flow, not the concurrent one. Fine. So we can return the flow object. So flow actually, in flow what happens is we can emit the state. That is, we can tell this is the loading state. Before calling the API network call, we can tell that we can emit an object called loading, and then after it is done, we can emit the success state, and if there is any um, error occurred or like a network error or IO exception, that is server side error, then we can emit the failure one. So let us emit. So it is the inbuilt function, and we'll tell state dot loading. And now for making the network call, we'll use the try catch block. Here I will get the response by calling the service dot fetch headlines function. So since both has the default parameter, we need not specify here. Next, we'll get the articles, because we are going to get only this. We are only going to display the articles, that is headlines. And what we'll do is we'll get the response, and we have the list of articles here. And since it is a of nullable type, we will just make it make sure that it is not null, and then we'll add a function called map as headlines model. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just creating an extension function, which is the feature available in the Kotlin. So this is actually the articles is actually the list of articles. That is, if you go to the network model here, it is a list of this article, right? So what we can do is we can create a function. Let us name it as, let us you copy this name. While creating the extension function, we need to add that type here. So we need to create extension function for the article, list of article, and we will name it as map as headlines model. We need to map it as headlines model, that is list of headlines model. That is what we used in the UA side. So we'll return map of, that is map of headlines object, headlines model object. So here, since we have everything as nullable type here, we'll just make sure that nothing is null while we initiate it to headlines model, which is used for UI. So I'll just give an empty string here. It dot description. It dot. It actually consists of uh, the article item, that is for each instance of the article author. So when we use this map as headlines model uh, function over uh, this list of articles, it will just convert it to the headlines model. So we will limit once this is fetched without any error, any error getting raised, we will limit it as success state, and the data would be articles. So we will add the catch block, which has the exception of type IO exception. Also, we will catch HTTP exception. For both, we will limit state.failed of exception. Sorry. So it's T. Fine. Yeah, it should work now. So I'm not sure why this happens. So it should come as string only. Let me just add string. Okay, fine. So I think it's because I have explicitly stated the return type here. Let me just verify with the inline type. So the error happened because I had this type specified explicitly. So if I had typed any, it should the error would have gone. So that's the thing. So we can do this in two types. Since we have two types of uh, data, that is either the actual data or the message error message data. We can type any here, or else we can use the inline type of returning. So we'll just exception dot to string. So once it's done, we need to make this flow on the IO thread. So make sure you choose the coroutines dispatcher and click on the IO. So let's see what is here. So it's better to use the inline type of return. Let me do that now. Still the error is there. I hope we need to import the Kotlin Flow library itself. Let me check that. using the inline return type. It should work. Fine, it's working. So I think I missed the braces, that kind of error. So we're good now with regards to the fetch headlines thing. Now let us. So we have the repository here. We have the API services implementer. Now what we will do is we'll move on to the ViewModel file, and then we will uh, create the use the repository object over there, and then we will complete it. Uh, just a minute. Give a minute. 1 minute. Yeah. So we'll create the repository, and we will send the service object like this. So I'll just try to create another one function. We'll create a live data here so that we will make it work for that is to make it persistence across the screen rotation. I'll name it headlines list. I'll keep it mutable so that I can change it whenever there is any update. I'll have it as a type state list of headlines model. I'll instantiate it. Then we will have a public variable which can be observed on headlines list, and we just have getter on it, and we'll assign it to the headlines list. Next, we will write a function to call the service from the repository. So we will do this in ViewModel scope because whenever the ViewModel is created and get destroyed, it gets automatically get destroyed. So we'll call the repository.fetch headlines, and we will use the collect object, and we will assign it to the mutable live data, that is value. It's returning state of type any. there is something wrong with this state class uh, file. Let's try to change this as fine. So this was the error. Fine, got it. So what we did is we just made this as t. Uh, so when we emit this as a string and this as a list of articles, it became a list of any. So that was the issue. Now I think view model is good for calling from the uh, fragment screen. So in the setup, we call the view model dot fetch headlines for getting it from the network call, and then we'll pause this initiation here. That is, we will comment out this and we will listen to the view models headlines list object, and we will observe on it on the view lifecycle owner. That is the current uh, objects, that is current fragments lifecycle owner, and we will observe the state. That is after we will observe it, and we'll send this observer. It is state we'll use the when state when to find what is the state and act accordingly. If the state is loading, then we need to show loading. If the state is success, then we need to show status success, and then we need to we need to call the init adapter here, passing in the data. So we'll add the parameter there. Now if it is state dot failed, then we will call show status failed. We just create those functions and we will add it later, add the functionality later. So we will for the adapter we will submit the list from this data. So we need to implement these screens now. So as of now we have created the variable in the view model, and then we have added that into as a live data, and then we have observed it. Now we need to add the another layout icon. Just wait for a minute. We'll just add that quickly. I'll just copy it from that file. If you see here, I have added the layout binding directly. I'll just quickly create this. So it's always better to create strings like this and dimensions in that dimensions.xml file. In the fragment headlines, we'll just include that layout directly. We'll use the include tag and we'll add ideas, load state, add the layout to the load item. And we will just keep it at the top of the screen by adding these constraints. Now we'll just implement those methods. So for the status file, we need to tell binding dot we need to make the visibility of the recycle view to view.gone, binding dot load state dot progress bar is equal progress visibility is equal to view.gone, binding dot load state error description is equal to dot visibility, view dot visible, and similarly for the button. I'll just copy this and just change this view dot go on and visible. So for when it is success, you need to make it visible. These both, all the three gone. When it is loading, you should make this visible and everything else gone. So we'll just load it. So meanwhile, I'll create a utility package here and add the adapter, binding adapter, so that we can make the image visible. Sorry guys, by mistake I left the meeting. There is some error. So we need to actually add the permission in the manifest field. So that's what the error is about. So we need to add the internet permission. So it's so we need to actually remove the text which we added there, and we need to bind it with the text we wanted. That is, we need to bind it here. Oops, sorry. So in data binding, what we do is we just put this at braces, and then we'll add model dot title. Similarly, we will add the remaining one. It is so. Meanwhile, we will create the binding adapter with the name load image, and then we will create a extension function for the image view, and we'll have the URL here. If URL is not empty or null, we, we will use glide. So for adding the for using the glide, we need to add its library again. I'll just rebuild data. Now we shall try adding the glide. Glide dot with sorry guys, there is some lag with. You need to send the context here as bitmap. We'll use glide in this context, and then we'll map it as a bitmap, and then load the image from the URL, and then we'll add into this image view. we can actually use the disk catch strategy. That is, it will actually catch the images. So glide internally, they would have implemented the catching and all. So that is why it's very popular, and also it has many other features. So within this recycler item, what we can do is we can just use load. So we need to app context and load image, and then we need to mention, that is, that model dot image URL. So before running this one, we will just have a look at this. So we have got all the items, but we don't find the image getting loaded. So that will happen now, since we are using the glide and then use the binding adapter. So the image also got loaded. So I wanted to mention one special thing here. That is a bug right now. That is, I said that we would be while using the view model, the data gets saved, and then only if the view model scope is getting destroyed, it will get destroyed. So when I reload it, actually you can find the this thing, that is the progress bar getting loaded. That is, that is nothing but it is again fetching for the data. It is because we are actually calling the uh, view model.fetch headlines, that we are actually making this call again and again while the screen is being rotated. So what we have to do is, we should not call the API calls over here. Instead, we need to go to the view model, and when the view model is getting initiated within the init block, we need to fetch the headlines. So when it happens like this, it only fetches once, and the next time what happens is it just uses the same data that is being stored as live data. See, uh, 1 minute. So whatever the rotation be, there is no that loading symbol. It's because we are using the view model, and then the data is being getting catched as live data. So this is all about the main part which we was about to cover. That is still this topic: Kotlin Flow, coroutines, view model, live data, lifecycle, navigation, data binding, view binding, all about this. So there is another one part, but since we have already exceeded the time, I'll just brief you out how to implement that. You guys can try that out. So the next thing is using safe arcs to actually navigate to the next screen, which we saw here. So when we click this title is getting moved over here. So what you can do is uh, we just need to you just need to look at this document, and then you need to implement it. It's just straightforward. You just need to add this argument to be sent, and then before that you need to add this class path. Make sure that you are reading this line carefully, because it's saying top level build-up detail, that is your project level, not your app level. And then you add this plugin, and then you, if you are using Kotlin, you need to add this Kotlin plugin. So you know, while creating that navigation from one screen to another screen, the base screen from where you are going to transform, that is from the main page, that will be named as the fragment name itself, appended by direction dot the action name. So if you are going to pass any argument, then you need to pass it here. And then while getting the argument in the next fragment, you just need to use the arcs uh, class, that is the target fragment arcs dot from bundle get arguments dot get amount is I think they would have implemented the function, but you can directly call the argument name, and then you can use it. So that's it all about the hands-on session. We'll just quickly run through the remaining thing. So how to become an Android associate developer? First, you need to learn Android, and that is, of course, from the official documentation. I would say official documentation is enough, and for me, Udacity was the single point of solution for me. That is, it taught me the basics clearly. So I would recommend Udacity for it. You can also go through the free courses. That is more than enough actually. And for studying for the Android developer certification, this is the one point solution again, because you just need to be thorough with all the mentioned topics under this: Android core, user interface, data management, and debugging and testing. Of course, testing is there, so make sure that you have uh, enough hands-on on that also, because testing topic would definitely be asked. And then so if you see the Android core, you just need to know the basics what we learned from this hands-on. And then the main thing is notification and work manager, how to make the uh, application to run in the background using the work manager. So go through this link. Maybe I will share with the host, and you can get from the get the link from them. So make sure that you go through all the topics here under this before moving on to take the certification exam. So I think there is nothing else much to talk about this, because everything is covered here. So, how I learned for the Android developer certificate, associate Android developer certification is, I just went through all the topics there, and I made sure that every topic was implemented step by step, and I just made an fact that I just thought that when I learn something, I should be clear in that. So that was my mind process, and then I learned, and then I was able to clear that exam. So resume tips. I'll just walk through you the main important points now. So as a disclaimer, I am not a professional advisor for giving the tips on resume building, and I haven't been through any. I haven't taken any recruitment process or for any companies or startups. So like there are three forms of resumes. One is for entry level for 0 to 3 years, and then prior industry experience, that is who have 3+ years of work experience and for a career change. For now, we will just look for the entry level which suits you. So the recommended resume order is the header, which consists of full name, that is as bold, a big title kind of thing, and then at the header column itself, you can have the contact information and other links to the online profile, like LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, Dribble, Medium. So skills comes in next. You can add the technical skills and soft skills. Um, Next comes the project. It's recommended to add the main 2 to 3 relevant projects which you have in your bucket. But I would recommend, if you have many projects, but you don't have any work experience of like any internship like that, you can add your volunteer experience and projects itself. Even that itself would speak loud about you. And then comes the education. You can add your uh, college and then maybe your higher secondary education. And the general tips are: make sure that your resume is consistent in formatting, and then make sure that it is short. Generally, one-page resume is recommended. Um, as it is a fact that all the recruiters take less than 2 to 3 minutes to read your resume. Just keep to make sure that you make it crisp and clear, and make it to one page. And then there is a application. If you are applying it in online, then there is a software called application tracking system, where uh, it looks for the main keywords, and uh, if there are any images like tables or icons, or even the image of yourself, then there is a high chance of getting rejected. Always write in first person, and avoid pronouns, and use action verbs like build, and then uh, and other things like you contributed, and then other things like developed, like that. Avoid grammatical mistakes and spelling mistakes, and always add your work experience and education in reverse chronological order. And then use common font which is very familiar, that is as mentioned here, Times New Roman. And then always name your resume file as in this format, that is your full name, resume.pdf or docs. Remove a picture from the resume, and that is only because you get more space for adding your content. That is from my point of view. And you can use always use bullet points, maximum of 2 to 3, and don't use any sub bullet points. And then um, yeah, you should be always be careful on the alignment, grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes. Make sure that the links are hyperlinked and it is clickable. PDF is best for making your format intact, and keep your resume and concise to one page. So the best way which I followed is proofreading until I feel that everything is good, and then I feel that asking our friends or family members to read the resumes and find for any mistakes and for improvements worked out for me. And that's it, guys. Thank you all. I'm really sorry for making it too long, but yeah. So let me switch on my video. So thank you all for this session, and then I especially thank the DSC lead of SRM University, Ramapuram Harikishan, and the host Divyashini and Kanishka for holding on for this long time. And thanks to participant viewers too. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for this amazing session. It was really nice hearing you. It was really
Yeah.
enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kavin.
Welcome, 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 guys.
And thanks to all the viewers for staying this long.
We can take doubts for like 2-3 minutes, and if there are no doubts, we'd like to end the session. So, if there are any doubts, kindly post it in the comment section. I'll be sharing a feedback form. Do fill that and let us know your experience. I think there are no doubts, so we can end this session. Thank you everyone for joining in.